A lot of people's liberalism is such that they feel they're not responsible for the crimes of their nation, their culture, whatever, their direct ancestors, none of that. As if they're just brand new. They just stepped from the sea foam. And they're arrogant. They're like, oh, you don't admit that we this fair trade this, so I'm a good person. But they might have 10% of their conscious purchases that way, and they don't want to deal with the analysis of the rest of it, or how they are, where they are, or the rest of it. They're using their liberalism to get out of a feeling of responsibility. So I advocate a feeling of responsibility. And for the Japanese, I advocate they're responsible for their part in everything. They didn't have to go become conquerors of Asia and rape, literally, the continent. They did that out of self-preservation. So you guys have this kind of like, you're totally guilty. Oh, an extenuating circumstance, you're totally forgiven. Oh, you knew better than that. Oh, you're totally guilty. No, it's not like that. Your black and white thinking won't work with morals. In fact, even gray thinking won't. You're going to have a spectrum, different brightnesses and different color domains. And then the color domains mix and create other color domains. That's how you have to move up in your color thinking, in your color metaphors. And it's like this thing that, well, we all know, Nina. Everybody did that. Did what? Let's not talk about it. I think it's significant. The U.S. has had concentration camps. We did it with Japanese too. It's like, yeah, but it's understandable. Everybody thought that way then. No. Always been people saying it wasn't the right way to go. Slavery, the rest of it. People just thought that back then. Well, the majority of people that were slaves probably didn't quite think that way. They might have thought they had to go with it, but it wasn't their favorite way to do it. No, it's a popular bigotry among a bunch of bigots that told each other, no, this is just the way things are, but it doesn't make you not bigots. But Piero, it's forgivable. I don't even care about that. Of course it's forgivable, everything. Look at the terrors of history. I mean, that's my point with the Philippines is a great example, because in a lot of ways, they have forgiven us. They've forgotten just like we want. But they haven't really forgotten. And the smarter people, they haven't forgotten. And they probably haven't forgotten their own crimes of this or that, or when they took over the islands and so on and so forth. History goes back kind of conflict-oriented. Let's all talk about that. Let's face that. Well, it's just human nature. What we do is we ignore it and let it happen. No. This is avoidable now. Look, I still think we need a military. It's a geopolitical reality out there. Like, one thing that happens is you go and do this to some nation. You put their local criminals in control, because that's the only people that'll backstab their own culture so hard as we're asking. Then they turn on us, and then we got criminals, lying criminals that we've taught to be lying criminals. You can't just pretend that those are good people because you did it wrong. No. So that's the world's a dangerous place. Have a military means we might use it. But knowing what's happened in history could inform that, Like, people in America are voting based on they hate us because our freedoms. Because we like freedom. Not because we're keeping our freedoms to ourselves. Not because we're interfering with them getting the same thing. No, for our freedoms. We might choose our wars a little differently if we knew sort of the old con jobs that we've been pulling and playing and played by. I mean, people are still all, America was isolationist till that Pearl Harbor thing and this thing and the Lusitania. Totally isolationist. No, that's just not factual. Our presidents ran on isolationist kind of rhetoric because they were lying to the American people. And they were world travelers. And the American people were just in their little communities and easy to lie to. no frames of reference. And that's what happened. And we're still going, oh, no, we were isolation officially. No, officially we were lied to. We were never isolationist in the least. We were officially lied to. Hello? And what's the problem with admitting that? Well, everybody did. Well, it's not quite the same, actually. I think like American slavery, we treated slaves like stock animals. Okay. Rome got to the point where they were treated like pets, which is at least a little bit better. But both are wrong, and therefore you could say that's a black threshold. Don't discriminate. No, the character of it is important to me. And what bothers me about American imperialism is how fake it was. It was hypocritical. We were talking about wanting to spread democracy, and we didn't do that on specific. We had chances to do that. We could have just supported Aguinaldo, right? You know, why were we the kind of country that made a deal with Korea to be partners forever? At the same time, we're making a deal with Japan to take over Korea. Well, because if Japan failed, we're into playing both sides. You see, when you play both sides, as long as you create chaos, you profit. And we've done this under the rhetoric of freedom and democracy. That's special. Okay? When I was in high school, I took Latin. We read the journals or whatever they are of Julius Caesar. It was sort of refreshing, that version of conquest. It's just disgusting too. But it's like, yeah, we beat them. They're great too. They're great people. Boy, they got a good cultures and stuff. But you know, Rome, we beat them. We beat the great. We're even greater. And it was just unapologetic. Ours is, you know, the Christian conquests. We're going to go free those people by killing half of them. And when I was a kid, and they were 70s and stuff, and they're starting to teach, you know, the conquest is a sort of a killing conquest torture thing. The Spanish, with their Inquisition, the way they treated the natives, terrible, terrible, terrible. Well, their natives were still around after they were done. So is there a comparison on that? And what we did to the Native American is, I mean, look, the Jewish people were kicked out of Israel thousands of years ago and didn't forget. And most Americans support them having their country back. What we did to the Native Americans was terrible on an even bigger scale. Decades and decades of Holocaust. That's not over. People, well, you can pay reparations? Yeah, I'd pay fucking reparations. I believed in the Japanese reparation payment. But I don't think just a bunch of money to select people that fill paperwork is the way to do it. I think, you know, like building homes and giving them to the descendants, or, you know, in the case of Native Americans, I think they ought to have their own nations. They've got those reservations. They should be able to grow hemp or whatever the fuck they want. Their own laws. That's what it should be. But right there in our borders, what if they have terrorists? It wouldn't be that. We wouldn't be confusing why they might do that. But then again, I think if we actually honestly tried to help build up their infrastructure and give them a real nation, that would be the least we could do. And I would even believe in something radical. Like, what about we drain Hetch Hetchy and we give that back to the Miwok? How about that? We're just wasting it right now. You know, what if there's huge areas of land to do all kinds of stuff, and there's the reservations. It's sad we gave the reservations. I mean, the Dakota really deserve the Black Hills back. Yeah, give them the Black Hills back. But there's white people living there now. Well, I guess they would get paid for their property, and maybe we can make sure it had a modern constitution, and those people could stay there, and they'd have to become citizens of that state. You know? I mean, Teddy Roosevelt totally unapologetically for killing the Indians. And there he is on a sacred mountain of theirs. His big giant face. You can't change the world, it is the way it is. Well, it changed in the past. Right? Yeah, well, I think you guys, a lot of you are blocked on solutions because you're just so racked by, but I don't want to face guilt, I don't want to do this, and you can't give people that, you can't blah, 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 blah. You can do anything that seems appropriate.